When Hyundai first introduced the Santa Fe nameplate to America all the way back in 2001, it was the company's first SUV and the vehicle that they needed so desperately to turn their sales around and also recover from the issues that they had back in the 1990s. Well, fast forward 25 years, and the Santa Fe has grown to become one of Hyundai's top-selling models. In fact, this is the third best-selling Hyundai model, right behind the smaller and more affordable Tucson and, of course, the entry-level Hyundai Elantra. Now, as you guys know, back in 2024, Hyundai gave the Santa Fe a radical redesign, moving it to its fifth generation and introducing a boxy, almost Ford Flex meets Land Rover Defender look on the outside. Now, for 2026, things stay roughly the same, but Hyundai has improved and added features, and they've also replaced the controversial dual clutch with an all-new 8-speed automatic transmission. So as you can see this week, we are testing out the more off-road oriented Santa Fe XRT trim, and the big question I want to answer, if you guys are in the market for a new mid-size family SUV, you need space for up to 7 people, has Hyundai made enough changes to the Santa Fe for 2026 to keep this model competitive? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the unique styling elements for the XRT version of the Santa Fe, let me go ahead and pop the hood and remind you guys what's powering this thing. Now, unlike the other trims of the Santa Fe, which offer a hybrid powertrain, the XRT only comes with the base engine, which is not a bad thing. This is the company's 2.5-liter gasoline direct injection turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now, Hyundai actually made this engine standard for the all-new fifth generation Santa Fe, which replaced the base non-turbo version in the previous generation. This 2.5-liter transverse-mounted gasoline direct injection double overhead cam turbo 4 still makes 277 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. Those are pretty healthy numbers. It's actually more powerful versus this car's main rival, which is the new Subaru Outback with a turbocharged engine. The big change for 2026 is that 8-speed dual-clutch transmission, that wet dual clutch, which was very problematic, has been replaced with a traditional 8-speed torque converter automatic. That was a smart change that this car basically needed to launch with, because it's a transmission that's going to be smoother, it's going to be more reliable, it's going to offer the typical performance that I think the buyer of this class is going to prefer. You can still take your pick between either front-wheel drive or the company's H-Track all-wheel drive system for $1,800. The XRT comes standard, of course, with their H-Track all-wheel drive system with a new terrain drive mode, which I'll show you later on during the interior scene. Now, the fuel efficiency of this model does go down because of the all-terrain tires and the suspension lift to 1925 or on 21 combined. It runs on regular gas with its 17.7-gallon fuel tank. Theoretically, you're looking at around 370 miles of range on a full tank. Now, 0 to 60 time, the last one we tested with the dual clutch did it in 6.7 seconds. Top speed should be around 120 miles an hour. The other big news for the XRT is this model will tow more, up to 4,500 pounds, thanks to the additional cooling that it gets in the radiator system, of course, and in the transmission, I believe. And this car, as it sits, weighs in at just under 4,500 pounds. It's heavy, but it's also not the heaviest version of the Santa Fe. The hybrids are going to be slightly heavier versus this model. I also want to point out that the fuel efficiency is basically the same if you're comparing it to the dual clutch 8-speed and this engine, although the XRT model does go down compared to last year's 2025 XRT by about 1 in the highway and 1 combined, which is still not too bad. But go ahead and closing the hood here, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling differences with the XRT compared to other trims. As you can see, my test car is painted in a really nice color called Rockwood Green. You can really see the beautiful green out here in the sunlight. I wanted to bring it out into the sunlight here so you could see the color and how it looks when the direct sun hits it. You can see the green itself actually does have a little bit of a metallic fleck to it. It's nice how Hyundai doesn't charge you extra for the green, but it only looks green when you have it in sunlight. When it's in the shade, it really looks more like a kind of a grayish green color. You can see all Santa Fe's, including the base model, come with the LED headlights, which are full LEDs, which kind of have that H logo kind of built into the daytime running light. The LED turn signal, you still get the LED light bar that goes across the front, although you do get a slightly different grille insert, which as you can see is a gloss black. I also like how the Hyundai emblem remains a gloss black. There's like a little mail slot here that allows for cooling to go into the radiator and the intercooler. This right here is an active grille shutter that will actually open and close based on the cooling needs. Down here you can see more functional cooling. You have your front parking sensors, looks like some functional vents over there even. And you can see the H logos, or the H theme, continues in the front fascia, but I have to say, I actually think that the grille insert on the XRT, maybe it's because of this green and the gloss black, looks better versus the last calligraphy that I tested. In general, the Santa Fe is supposedly getting a pretty heavy refresh for 2027. We'll probably see that unveiled at the end of this year, which is kind of crazy because this car feels like it just came out, but technically it came out in Korea nearly 3 years ago. Now, moving around to the side profile, you can see this box on wheels design is like a combination of a Ford Flex with a Land Rover Defender. It looks even more like a Defender when you get it in the XRT trim because of the all-terrain tires and the suspension lift. This is a mid-size SUV with a 110.8-inch wheelbase and overall length of just over 190 inches. It's just under 75 inches wide as well, and just under 70 inches tall when you include the roof rails. In general, this vehicle is roughly around 6 to 8 inches longer versus most of the compact competitors. You can see the wheel and tire package. This is unique for the XRT. It's an 18-inch alloy wheel. Gloss black, of course. It almost looks like it has kind of like a beadlock style wheel. I like the way it looks with the Continental all-terrain tires. These are a 30-inch all-terrain tire, which means it's a 245 by 60 R18. Brakes are 12.8-inch rotors in the front, same size in the rear. And then, like I said earlier, the suspension is lifted an inch, and then you get additional clearance from the all-terrain tires, a total of 8.3 inches of ground clearance, which I believe is the same as like a Honda Passport, for example. So it's not bad, but keep in mind the Subaru Outback offers 8.7 and up to 9.3 on the Wilderness trim. You can see there's a gloss black Santa Fe logo here, which has like a fake looking vent to it. You have more gloss black for the mirror caps here. The roof rails, as you can see, are basically the same roof rails that you get on other trims. You can see this trim also includes just a standard sunroof. The limited and ups will get the dual pane sunroof. And then this feature here, they first introduced it on when this car came out, is a great feature where you can basically push that in, use this as a handle and step on the tire to kind of hoist yourself up to get above the vehicle. So this is a great feature for short people like myself. You can also close that up, and you can also lock that if you don't want somebody random coming up and opening that up. You can see as you back away from the car, that boxy, almost station wagon-ish look to the vehicle is definitely bold. I think the car's design, personally, I don't know if it'll age very well. I'll be curious to see what the refresh model looks. From the spy shots, there's a pretty good indication that Hyundai's going to take some design cues from the new Palisade, and they're probably going to change the way the rear taillights look a lot. As you can see, the taillights were very controversial when this first came out, and they're still weird. You can see it's got that H logo that's designed into the actual LED taillights. Some people have compared it to looking like a dog bone, which once you hear that, you really can't unsee it. You can see the rear spoiler, as you can see, is kind of built in. The rear wipers tucked underneath here, which is a nice touch. LED brake light along with more black badging. The XRT also gets a dedicated XRT badge with the H-Track badge there to let everybody know it's all-wheel drive. And then the rear bumper, you can see, has some additional unpainted black plastic with the reverse lights and reflectors down there. In general, I like the squared off wheel arches with this trim, and Hyundai really was restrained in terms of the cladding. I think it has a very tasteful amount. This trim also gets a single outlet chrome tipped exhaust, which kind of has like a trapezoidal shape to it. And you can see it's a very upright design, and this upright design basically forced Hyundai to kind of move the taillights down there because they wanted to also make the opening larger. Now, as you can see, there's your backup camera right there. A power liftgate, which is hands-free, is also standard on this trim. And with the repositioning of those struts, which forced them to move the taillights all the way lower, as you can see, when you open it up, the turn signal switches to this lower one. So it's technically not just a reflector light down there. It's also functions as the turn signal. You have 14.6 cubic feet of storage space, which is a pretty usable amount. It's obviously going to be around 6 cubic feet less versus the Palisade because this is a smaller vehicle. You do have some underfloor storage, actually a pretty deep underfloor storage with a spare tire and your necessary tools to open said spare tire, open the spare tire, or change it. As you can see, if I pulled on this, this folds the seat down. It's a manual fold. First, you have to pull on that to make the headrest go down. And then once you fold down the third row, which is how most people I suspect are gonna probably keep this car, you get around 40.8 cubic feet of storage space. 40.8 is definitely around 5 to 6 cubic feet more versus most of its competitors in the compact space, which is why the Santa Fe is interesting because you could compare it to a compact, even though this is more of a mid-size offering. If you fold down the second row as well, which Hyundai basically allows you to push this button here, that'll fold down the second row. It's really easy. You expand the cargo to just under 80 cubic feet, around 79.8. That's a pretty generous amount. And again, compared to compact SUVs, this has roughly 10 to 15 more cubic feet of storage space. Keep in mind the Palisade is going to offer another 10 cubic feet of additional storage space. But in general, this is a very practical vehicle, and it's pretty easy to see why the Santa Fe has become such a strong seller for them. So there were no exterior styling changes for 2026, but what about the interior? Let's go ahead and hop inside this XRT trim and show you some of its differences. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. As you can see, all Santa Fe's come with Hyundai's latest intelligent access key, which kind of looks like an egg until you flip it on its side, and you notice that it's actually the H logo built into the fob. The key itself has lots of buttons, the typical ones for lock, unlock, remote start, which is included on this trim, along with panic. You also still get a power liftgate, but if you're looking for their smart part feature where you can move it forward and back from the remote, you have to go for the top calligraphy trim, I believe. But as you can see, approaching the door handle, it has a traditional pull style handle. If you touch this area here with the square, that will lock the doors for you. This trim also does not include power folding mirrors. Touch the back of the door handle, that will unlock the door. Hyundai does not include an auto walkaway lock or unlock feature, unlike some competitors. Now, as you can see, looking at the interior, I hope you guys like a black interior because this is the only color option available with the XRT trim. It's basically covered in their H-Tex, which is a leatherette, synthetic leather material with the XRT branding embroidered on the actual seat back themselves. The padding and the leatherette material feels pretty decent quality. In fact, it feels almost like a real leather. The driver's seat is an 8-way power adjustment, 6-way manual on the passenger side. No memory function, however. The limited trim is what's going to give you the memory and the ventilated seats. So you got to go to the limited trim and spend around $4,500 extra to get that feature. Now, looking at the door panel, you can see it has a soft touch injection molded plastic with some faux stitching. This material here almost tries to look like a textured, I guess, aluminum trim, but it's basically just plastic with a little bit of a texture to it. You've got some silver painted plastic trim here, same thing with the door handle. It's somewhat padded over here with the leatherette covering the elbow area here where you rest your elbow. The window controls, one touch up down for only the front windows. The rears are not one touch. You have to step it up to the limited trim, I believe, or I'm sorry, the calligraphy trim to get the one touch for all four. Down here you can see it's hard touch plastic, and then you just get a standard Hyundai branded sound system with a little bit of storage there. You have to again go to the limited to get the Bose 12 speaker stereo system. But overall, the interior definitely makes a great first impression. I just think Hyundai needs to offer their pecan brown, or just a brown interior in general for the XRT. It would look really good with this rockwood green exterior color. Now, stepping inside with the extra suspension lift, you do notice the step-in height for this vehicle feels a little bit taller than the other Santa Fe trims. As I shut the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on their new N3 architecture. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see the start-stop button is right here where you'd expect it to be, blocked by the shifter, or by the turn signal stalk, of course, or wiper stalk. And because this vehicle is not a mild hybrid or the hybrid model, it has a very traditional starter noise, and I'm also noticing this trim also doesn't come with the fully digital 12.3-inch driver display. Instead, you have a 4.2-inch center display there with kind of like an analog, old-school digital style for the tachometer and the speedometer. You can change the way that looks by adjusting the drive modes. If you put it into sport, it goes into a red color. If you go back into the My Drive, it basically has a blue and an orange accent for the tachometer. No head-up display on this trim. Again, you have to step up to the calligraphy trim to get that. But in terms of the materials, you can see this upper portion is the same soft touch injection molded plastic with the faux stitching. This area here is also slightly padded. This is technically the secondary glove box. Hyundai had a kind of like a phone, or it was like a sanitation box on the 2024 calligraphy. You can see more of that carbon fiber aluminum look trim here, along with this kind of air vent with traditional tabs to adjust the flow. It almost looks like a continuous vent. This area here is still kind of their touch capacitive buttons. This is where you can find the heated seats, but there's an empty space here because this is where the ventilated seats would go and the heated steering wheel. I really think the XRT trim should have included a heated steering wheel, especially when it's 23 degrees outside. I'm definitely missing that feature. But mostly these off-road models, people tend to go camping with these vehicles or take them on some off-road trails. So in general, it would have been nice to have a heated steering wheel. The wheel itself does offer a manual tilt telescoping adjustment. It's pretty easy to get a comfortable driving position. You have paddles to control the 8-speed auto, lots of traditional hard buttons for the adaptive cruise control, for the audio control system. This does not illuminate like it does on some other Hyundai products with their new logo here. This is basically the 4 dots, and the 4 dots mean H in Morse code. The horn, it sounds pretty much nondescript. But the tone is appropriate given the size of this vehicle. Lots of additional buttons here for your electronic parking brake, your dimmer control. There's like a dedicated tow button here because remember this trim tows up to 4,500 pounds. Your stability control off, and then your power liftgate switch, of course. And then, of course, in the center here, you're going to get the standard 12.3-inch display. This trim does include GPS, at least, built in. This is the first trim or this is the first trim in the trim ladder to get the GPS included. The other trims won't have the GPS, but most of the times you're not going to use the embedded GPS. You're just going to use wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which this car has. It's running, of course, their CNCC software with the wireless functionality. No 360 camera on this vehicle. When I put it in reverse, you can see just a backup camera, which includes trajectory, distance markers. But again, this trim should have really included a 360 camera because it's something that, a feature that people would really find useful when you're off-roading. Even though this vehicle is not the biggest car, it's just kind of helpful if you're trying to traverse some like terrain and whatnot. The software behind this hasn't really changed too much. It's still the same CNCC, like I said. It's quick and snappy. It's pretty easy to use. This is also the trim that includes the Hyundai Pay feature, where you can essentially use your car almost like a Apple Wallet type of vehicle or type of functionality where you could pay for things on the go, like at a gas station. I don't know if that's actually active here in the US, but it must be. I just have never tried it myself. You can see lots of knobs and buttons for the volume, for the tuning, for your 3-zone climate control, which is nice. Your drive mode selector is here. As you can see, there's 3 modes, but then there's a new mode, and it's only on the XRT. If you push in on this, it goes into a terrain mode where you can select snow, mud, or sand. This was not offered on the 2024 or 2025 XRT model, so this is, again, part of the new 8-speed auto. This is a feature that they took from the Palisade XRT Pro, so that actually gives it a little bit more software tuning and programming for the all-wheel drive system. You have 2 USB-C charging ports here, and then the SEL trims and up, including this trim, gets dual wireless phone charging pads. So that's a new feature for 2026. Previously, it was only on the driver's side. Now it's on the passenger side, so I really appreciate that. It's also kind of raised up to allow more for more adequate cooling of your phone when you actually are charging it. You have your auto start stop defeat button here. If you push that, it brings up your backup camera, but again, no 360 camera. You do have front and rear parking sensors at least. And then down here, you can see your 12-volt power outlet along with additional storage, which is nice there. Decent sized cup holders, of course. And then this lid, as you can see, opens up to reveal a pretty decent storage area. But what's cool about this is you can actually take this partition out and reveal an even deeper storage well, and that's there because Hyundai gives you another storage area for the rear seat passengers, and there's even like a little partition that comes out there to have access to this little storage, which we'll show you when we get into the back area. This lid also still opens up from dual sides, which is a nice touch for rear seat passengers. I think that's a great feature that a lot of families are going to prefer. And then, like I said earlier, the seats are manual for this side. The heat function works well, but they could be a little softer padded. But in general, I just want Hyundai to offer a lighter seat option or lighter seat color for this particular trim. The glove box, you can see, push that down. It's a bin style. It's damped, but not lined with felt. It's a pretty decent size, and along with another storage shelf over here in addition to this additional shelf over here. The audio system sounds okay. It's a little bit, it lacks the punch that you're gonna get from the Bose stereo system. But in general, you have good sight lines, decent build quality. I didn't hear any squeaks and rattles, but my particular test car here has this little rubberized piece here that's not fitting properly, and I tried to push this back into place. I'm going to need a tool to push that back in. There's a little bit of an uneven panel gap there, but at least I didn't hear any squeaks and rattles. And in general, this interior is full of most of the tech you're going to want. I just think for the money, the XRT could have included a heated steering wheel and a 360 camera. A digital camera rearview mirror or an auto dimming rearview mirror would have also been nice. At least this trim is the first trim that gives you the sunroof here. This is the only trim actually that gives you the standard sunroof. The limited and up trims will get the dual pane sunroof, but this actually does open up. It tilts and it opens up to vent air with a built-in sunshade and the manual retractable sun blocker as well. So overall, the interior is definitely still a nice place to spend time. It feels roomy, it has good visibility, and it has most of the tech features that you can want. I just want Hyundai to include some of those features that I mentioned earlier, and perhaps maybe even like a premium package. Now moving into the back seat of the XRT version of the Santa Fe, as you can see, this trim only comes with the second row bench seat. So this vehicle allows for seating for up to 7. If you get the captain's chairs on the limited or calligraphy, you're going to lower your seating capacity to 6. So I appreciate how this actually does have the bench. It's covered in the same H-Tex leatherette material, and you have around 42 inches of legroom back here, which is among the best in the class. This is definitely a roomy vehicle if you plan to carry just 4 adults. You can see the material quality carries over back here where it's soft touch. It has that same material here, which tries to look like a brushed aluminum. And then you have a padded armrest area over here along with the 2 cup holders. Window controls, like I mentioned, just they're power, but they're not one touch. And if you want the retractable sunshades, you have to go for the limited trims and up. Now getting back here, as you can see, it still has that nice easy step in. As I shut the door has that same solid sounding thunk, but check this out, guys. At 5'7", this is my driving position, tons of space to stretch about, good foot space underneath as well. I also really like these little hooks that you get that are built in. The kind of H logo from the exterior is kind of carried over back here. You have 2 USB-C charging ports, which is nice. And then if you open this up, you can see that's where you have access to that additional storage area, which is a cool feature. And you can see I can open up from back here, which is a great touch for families. The center area here, as you can see, has somewhat of a slight hump, but for somebody my height, I can't sit over here, although it does feel a little bit constrained. The vehicle could be a little bit wider in that regard. Your rear seat air vents are actually located here on the pillars, as opposed to being here. But what's interesting is if you're trying to adjust the airflow back here, the controls for it are actually located in the third row, which we'll get into in just a second. There is an armrest here that folds down, gives you 2 cup holders along with these adjustable head restraints. The headroom itself in this car is also plentiful. I have like a solid 4 or 5 inches of additional clearance because even though the sunroof takes up space, it has this carve out here to give you even more headroom space. You can see there's a grab handle here in basically almost all seating positions except for the third row. You have LED map lighting back here. Obviously, it would be nice if this trim included the retractable sunshades, but there's a reason why you'd want to go for the limited trim. But in general, the second row is going to be spacious for even your super tall friends. Plenty of leg room to cross your legs to stretch about. So this is one of the big selling features with the Santa Fe. Now, getting into the third row, as you can see, Hyundai makes it pretty easy. There's a button down here, or there's a button over here. Now, you can slide these seats forward and back, obviously, to improve the third row legroom space, and you're going to want to do so because the third row legroom, I will say, is pretty tight. Now, to get back here, you basically push this button right here. That will slide the seat forward, and you can push it out of the way. And to get back here, you can see the space isn't what I would say huge. There's a reason why Hyundai wants you to buy the Palisade if you need more. Now, Hyundai says that the third row legroom back here is around 30 inches. 30 inches is a good 4 inches less versus the Palisade, which is, again, their flagship 3-row SUV. This is with the seat all the way back, and I have to say, I can sit back here with the seat all the way back. My knees just barely graze against the seat back here, so if I wanted to, I could ask this passenger to move the seat forward. They have plenty of leg room to do so. Let's see if I can bring this back. As you can see, that's with it moved forward slightly. So when it's in this position here, I can sit back here. You can see it's moved maybe like 2 inches forward. So this is okay. The floor is, on the lower end, but at the same time, the bench sits lower versus the second row here. So my knees are kind of up, jammed in my face a little bit. There's a pretty sizable window here so I can still see out of it. You do have third row air vents, a USB-C charging port, cup holders. It's all hard touch plastic. And then as you can see back here, there is an actual household power outlet, another USB air vents, and then this is where you can adjust your airflow. I don't know why Hyundai puts it into the third row here. It really should be in the second row. You still have the same cup holders. This only has room for 2 across, as you can see, but at least it has standard headrests here. And the leatherette material here feels pretty similar quality to the second row area. As I sit back here, as you can see, there's actually good headspace because this is a box. I have a solid maybe 2 inches of clearance at 5'7". So again, the third row in the Santa Fe is surprising. You don't typically find a third row that's usable in this kind of mid-size SUV class. But remember, if you want more space, Hyundai offers the Palisade, but it's going to cost you around $5,000 to $8,000 more. So the all-new 5th generation Hyundai Santa Fe has been a pretty big sales success for Hyundai. In fact, they actually sold about 20% more units in all of 2025 versus 2024. They had their best sales year ever. So clearly the company is doing something right with this all-new 5th generation. Here we are behind the wheel of the XRT trim, which is the more off-road oriented model. It basically gets a 1-inch suspension lift. It has unique suspension tuning, all-terrain tires, but the big change for 2026 is the fact that that dual clutch 8-speed has been replaced with a conventional torque converter 8-speed auto, which is a change that this car desperately needed because they had so many problems with the dual clutch. In fact, my good friends Mason and Drew from Car Confections had one in early 2024 that had the transmission fail twice. So clearly, Hyundai is listening to consumers, listening to feedback, and this model, the XRT, only comes with the base engine, which is a 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, making 277 horsepower, 311 foot-pounds of torque. The last one we tested was the dual clutch, which did 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds. The hybrid does it in around 7.2. Let's go ahead and see what we can get with this new 8-speed auto on our usual stretch of road here. We have the transmission in its sport mode, or the drive mode in sport. We're going to go ahead and brake torque it. It actually bogged a little bit there. The wheel spin kind of threw it off a little bit, but we got 6.91 seconds there. 6.91 is pretty respectable. The traction control is what kind of made the transmission stumble a little bit, but I do notice right away that the transmission is definitely smoother when it starts shifting. The 8-speed dual clutch previously was, better at having faster shifts, but at the same time, they were kind of slurred shifts. It wasn't always the smoothest transmission. So I think by switching it to the torque converter automatic, they're definitely giving it the transmission that this kind of car needs. Because let's be honest here, people who drive a vehicle like this, they don't need a dual clutch. It is going to confuse people more because they're going to think there's something wrong with the transmission as opposed to having something that's, more conventional feeling. Let's try another run here. It literally spins the front tires ever so slightly when you brake torque it. 7.58 seconds there. So slower, obviously, but at the same time, we are also going more slightly uphill. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the traction control and do one more run up ahead and see if that makes a difference, because clearly when you brake torque it, it's kind of making the transmission stumble a little bit as it slips, and then the traction control is kind of intervening and cutting the power. But regardless, this vehicle has plenty of power for most people. I mean, the fact that Hyundai got rid of the base naturally aspirated 4-cylinder from the previous generation and made the turbo standard was a big improvement. They kind of had to, though, because this generation gained a lot of weight because it also got bigger. Hyundai got rid of the longer wheelbase model from the 3rd generation and just made this car one size, which is kind of what they did also for the 4th generation. But in general, the XRT model is designed to be more of the off-road oriented version, but at the same time, it hasn't really lost its on-road dynamics. This is still a unibody SUV with an all-independent suspension. It's got a 30-inch tall, almost 30-inch tall all-terrain tire on it, which doesn't really do much in terms of making it noisier. I'm noticing it just feels like you're sitting up a little higher. So I appreciate the extra ground clearance, the higher seating position. I'm getting more, again, Land Rover Defender vibes when I drive this vehicle, especially since it's a big box on wheels. But at the same time, the steering is still pretty quick, direct. It's light and devoid of feel, but at the same time, this car feels competent. It's not sporty, which the Santa Fe has never been sporty, but it's very much easy to drive. It has a good soft ride quality, especially in this trim. It's even softer because of the thicker sidewalls that it gives you with the all-terrain tires. The seats also are comfortable and supportive, but the padding could be a little bit softer. This is the company's H-Tex, so it's a leatherette seating material. When I start driving the vehicle, just accelerating normally, you can feel it's a really smooth transmission. Just not as quick shifting as the dual clutch, but this is gonna be better for everyday driving applications. People are gonna appreciate this transmission a lot more. It just goes about its business just fine. You're gonna basically notice the transmission fades into the background. The engine is a little noisy at times. When you push it past 5,000 RPM, you can really feel and hear the vibration coming back. It could be a little bit more refined in that regard, but it's still not a bad vehicle, or not a bad engine at all. Let's try one more run here. Traction control is off. There we go, that's better. It didn't bog this time as it slipped the front tires. Ooh, okay, 6.46 seconds there. 6.5 seconds, that's with it still on level ground. So there you have it, folks. The 8-speed auto has actually made this car a little faster. 0.2 seconds faster, 0 to 60, versus the old dual clutch. And that's because I think this car actually launches a little bit harder. I'm noticing it lets me rev up the engine to nearly 3,000 RPM. I'm actually surprised that it's allowing so much wheel spin. I kind of enjoy how it spins out the tires pretty easily. And again, the all-wheel drive system is still primarily a front drive bias system until it feels the slip from the front, sends the power to the back. It's not like any kind of torque vectoring all-wheel drive, but it's certainly going to get the job done. It's going to give you the additional traction you need in those bad weather conditions. As I start pushing around some corners here, again, there's a little bit of body lean, but it's fine. It's quiet in here. It's comfortable. It is smooth for the most part, except if you push the engine too much. One of the additions they added this year is the new terrain mode, which obviously, if you're gonna go into the terrain mode, it offers a snow, mud, and sand. You basically push this drive button in to go into the terrain mode. I'm not gonna drive the vehicle off-road on this drive, obviously, but I suspect the most off-roading people are gonna do in this car is they're gonna maybe take it to a dirt road or a gravel road when you take it a little further off the beaten path when you're taking this vehicle camping. There's very little road and wind noise I'm noticing, just a little more tire noise I'm hearing, just a smidge more. It's not that much different. It's still a very refined car. You can easily take this vehicle on a longer road trip and you're gonna enjoy it. The ride is so smooth and comfortable, and I didn't hear a single squeak and rattle in this interior, so build quality is also solid, which is important. This is a car that's definitely not as cheap as it used to be, but in general, I'm liking this car. It has really good bones to it. It feels refined, and I think a lot of people are gonna appreciate what this car essentially has to offer. Let's try one more run here. This time I'm not gonna brake torque it. We're just gonna floor it. .78 seconds there. So there you have it. Brake torquing it does reduce the 0 to 60 by 0.2 seconds, roughly, which most people won't do that, but in general, quickest I got was just under 6.5 seconds. Most of the times you're gonna be getting 6.7. So this car is gonna feel pretty similar to the dual clutch in terms of acceleration. It's just gonna be smoother and easier to drive when you are driving this vehicle normally, which is how most people are gonna drive it. In terms of fuel efficiency, this car, the gas mileage did go down ever so slightly by 1 mpg in the combined, and on the highway rating, it went down by 1. In my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 22 miles to the gallon, and mostly highway driving. The best I got on the highway was around 24. So clearly you're gonna wanna get the hybrid if you want to get, you know, over 30 miles to the gallon. This model struggles to even get in the mid-20s because of the all-terrain tires that lift up the suspension. They ruin the aerodynamics a little bit. But in general, the Santa Fe is not the most fuel efficient unless you get the hybrid model. And the hybrid, remember, is going to slow the 0 to 60 down by a little over half a second, which I think should be a fine for most people. But again, if you want better efficiency in this car, you're going to go for one of the calligraphy or limited trims that will get around 28 mpg on the highway, around 23 combined. In general, though, the fuel efficiency of this car is not horrible. It's just not class leading. It's slightly average to below average, I'd say. But I think with the addition of this 8-speed auto, Hyundai has addressed a big flaw that the original model had when it first came out, because it now has the smoothness and most likely better reliability. And just in general, it improves the driving experience for the type of buyer that's going to be purchasing a family SUV like this. Now, with just over 142,000 units sold last year, Hyundai had their best sales year ever for the Santa Fe. And like I said earlier, their sales were up roughly 20%, making this vehicle the third best-selling model in the lineup and really outselling a lot of its competitors as well. So Hyundai has a very strong offering here in the mid-size three-row SUV space, which again, this is a three-row mid-size SUV, which is a little hard to find, but what's shocking about it is you can actually use the third row for average size adults, which is pretty unheard of in this particular class of vehicle. And after spending a full week with the latest XRT model, specifically, of course, testing out the new 8-speed automatic transmission, it's exactly what the doctor ordered to improve this vehicle's driving dynamics, especially if you guys aren't interested in the hybrid model. But remember, if you want the XRT, it only comes with the 2.5 liter turbocharged non-hybrid 4-cylinder. The 0 to 60 time that we got surprised me. I was not expecting the new 8-speed torque converter automatic to be a little bit quicker versus the dual clutch, but we got 6.48 seconds, just under 6.5 seconds. Of course, that's when you launch the vehicle. If you just floor it from a stop, it'll do it in around the same time as the old dual clutch, which is plenty of power for most people. The ride quality of the Santa Fe also is on the more comfort-oriented side, especially when you guys go for this trim because of the thicker sidewalls that you get with the more off-road tuned suspension. But at the same time, the off-road upgrades that this car gets doesn't affect the on-road handling dynamics, but at the same time as well, the Santa Fe isn't gonna kind of give you the off-road, capabilities that you're looking for from like a Jeep, for example. Honda's Passport Trail Sport also offers more off-road capability, mostly because Hyundai doesn't actually put all-terrain or skid plates on this vehicle. I think skid plates would have been a nice addition, even though they did improve the suspension, giving it more lift, and those all-terrain tires is also a nice touch. The interior of the XRT trim definitely loses the luxury feel that you get from the calligraphy, and I do want Hyundai to offer features like a 360 camera and a heated steering wheel and another brown interior color option, especially with this rockwood green. The second row is still among the most spacious, the third row is usable, and the cargo area, when you fold down the third row, is also among the best you're gonna find in this segment. But in general, the Santa Fe remains a very strong entry in the class, and the beauty about it is you can get this vehicle as a hybrid. So if you don't want the kind of thirstier nature of this trim here, the hybrid model will get around 34 mpg combined. This model here, however, is around 21. And then in terms of pricing, the Santa Fe remains pretty competitive there. Now, Hyundai has increased the price over the years. The base SE with front-wheel drive now starts at just over $35,000, around $800 more versus the 2025 model year. The hybrid actually got a lot cheaper for 2026, however, because Hyundai now introduced a base SE hybrid trim for around $36,400. Previously, you could only get the hybrid as the SEL trim. Now, if you want the XRT, it'll start at around $42,000 with destination charge. My test car here is around $43,600. So $43,600 is still a reasonable price. Remember, you're paying, on paper, it looks like $5,000 more than an SEL trim. Remember, this is based on the SEL, but it comes standard with all-wheel drive. So in general, Hyundai's charging around $2,700 for the XRT trim. Most people, however, will probably step it up to the limited. The limited trim, on paper, looks like it's around $2,700 more, but you have to add all-wheel drive to the limited for $1,800, which will push the price to around $4,500 extra. In general, I personally would go for a limited, but you're gonna pay around 48 grand for a limited. This trim, I think there's room for Hyundai to introduce a premium package that will give you the 360 camera and the heated steering wheel, for example, and push the price to around $45,000. But I think Hyundai still has a very strong value here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see their sales improve for the 2026 model year. And I'm also going to be really curious to see what the updated 2027 model year is going to look like when they show it toward the end of this year. Well, all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full detailed overview on the latest 2026 Hyundai Santa Fe in the new XRT or the XRT trim level. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.